He's the author of numerous story collections and novels for both adult and young adults, and he wrote the Chaos Walking trilogy as well as the novel A Monster Calls. He received a variety of high honors, among them the Carnegie Medal, the German Youth Literature Prize, and the Guardian Children's Fiction Prize. And he's in fact the perfect man for the opening of a festival such as this one, given that the Guardian recently wrote about him. Patrick Ness is very, very good at beginnings. So let the festival begin with the great conjurer of beginnings. Please welcome Patrick Ness.
Hello. Thank you. God, I can barely see you. Good. How's your English? Hey, good. That's good. 'Cause my German is shit. First, I'd like to apologize for my extremely casual attire. I brought my swankiest and, dare I say, most expensive suit on the plane, and I hung it in the cabinet by the front, and then I walked off the plane without it. So this is a lot more wrinkled and blue jean-like than I was planning, but I'll just say what I always say in situations like this. Entschuldigung, ich bin Amerikaner. I've got a speech, and then I guess we're going to talk about stuff I've heard many a million times, so let's just get right. Shall we get right to the speech? Yeah, good, let's get right to the speech. It's early, and I'm nervous, and it's early, so I might yawn and be shaky and nervous, but let's begin. So I'll just tell you a little story. When I was 8 years old, I was told that I would be dead before the year was out. I lived in a tiny, tiny little town called Puyallup, Washington, which is about 35 miles south of Seattle in the northwest of the country. And Washington is a great state. Washington is a fantastic state. It is one of the most literate and progressive states in all of the United States. Last election, we voted to legalize both gay marriage and pot. And so there you go. Yeah, we're happy about that. Yeah, why isn't gay marriage legal in Germany? Ooh, quiet at that. Ooh, we have nothing to say about that. Yeah, it's legal in the UK, it's legal in France and Spain, but not Germany. So it's a great state, but America is nothing if not varied, and Puyallup, my little town, was and remains the home of several of those enormous evangelical megachurches that you might have heard about, those great big megachurches. And my family at the time attended Puyallup Nazarene Church, which was Pentecostal and evangelical. And on December 31st, 1979, when I was 8 years old, we attended a midnight New Year's Eve service. And which is rare for us. The church didn't really do that, but I remember we went this New Year's Eve for midnight church service. And during the sermon, the pastor told all of us, there were probably about 800 people there, he told all of us that he believed in his heart that 1980 was the year that the Lord was going to come back to earth. That the rapture would happen. Do you know what the rapture is? Yeah, look it up. It's a scary American thing. That the rapture would happen, the end times would begin, and before the end of 1980, we would all either be called up to heaven for eternity or dead under the heel of the Antichrist. Now that is fucked up. I'm not going to try to defend it or explain it, but I will say this, and this is really important, because I want to say this too. This is really important. This church, even though it is so easy and common to make fun of Americans for the churches that are there. And fair enough, I do it myself. But this is a church attended by some really lovely, kind people, some of whom I still know and am friends with. So I'm not out to bash them. I'm really not. I'm not out to complain or make fun of them at all. This is just my personal experience. That I was 8 years old and told that the world was going to end within the year. Now, crucially, I had just turned 8 2 months before, in October. And I say crucially because in my church, the general accepted age of moral responsibility, which is to say the age at which you could choose to be baptized, was 7. It was 7. So if the rapture had happened before I turned 7, I'd have been okay. I'd have had nothing to worry about. I'd have been an innocent child and zipped right up to heaven. But I was now 8 years old, and therefore responsible for my soul. But the thing is, even at 8 years old, I knew I wasn't up to it. Even at 8, I had those doubts. I was an anxious little kid. In my child head, I knew that I wasn't good enough, that I would never be good enough for a God whose demands seemed, even then, capricious and unreliable. Now, I'm not asking for sympathy. We get the lives we get, and mine was a lot easier than many people's lives. But I do ask for empathy, because I truly believe that though your circumstances were probably different, or are probably different, maybe not, but I doubt that what you felt aged 8 was actually all that far off from feeling like the world was going to end and you were responsible for it. At aged 8, I was faced with my mortality. But, and this is the thing nobody ever talks about childhood, I was expected to cope. I was expected to cope with my mortality at age 8. And importantly, I did cope. I handled it. I did. Now, the title of this sort of opening to the Berlin Lit Festival is Why on Earth Write Books for Young People? Are there any writers out there? Anybody want to be a writer? Anybody want to be a writer? Oh, you're a shy group. I'm going to keep asking. A few hands. Anybody want to be a writer? Let me ask again. Anybody? There you go. That's a bit better. Good. So why write for young people? Why do that? Why be an adult who writes for young people? Why do that? But I think maybe the better question is, what are young people? Who are they? Who are you? What is childhood? I mean, truly, what is childhood? We all think it's freedom from responsibility, constant laughs and tantrums and the summer, and just the most brilliant, bloody time ever. But I don't think it's all that. I think it's partially those things. I think it's partly those things, but I think it's also being told when you're 8 that the world will be ending soon, and there's a good chance you aren't going to make it. Teenagers, I think, are even harder, because you are given a lot of the responsibilities for being an adult, but almost none of the privileges. There's some nods of recognition at that. Yes, you agree with that. It's the sense of injustice of being a teen is really strong, and also, I think, quite fair. I think it's fair to feel that way when you're a teen. And I think we've all got something. Like I said before, I think we've all got something, like being 8 years old and thinking the world was going to end. I've got a theory about personality. I've got a theory, more like a metaphor of what I use to describe my personality. I think that I am every age I ever was. I don't think I'm just my age now. I think I'm every age I ever was. I don't think I stopped being 8 or 22 or 17. I think it's all there. I see myself as a big warehouse that contains every single thing that's ever happened to me. And who I am and how I feel on a particular day is where I'm standing in that warehouse and what I've decided to pick up and hang on to for that day. So when I write for young people, I truly don't feel like I'm writing for a nebulous them. I'm writing for the teenager that I was. I'm writing for the teenager that I believe I still am. In fact, I think I'm still writing for that 8-year-old in Puyallup, Washington, wondering how he's going to die in 1980. Now, a story comes from who you are and what you care about. And I look at that 8-year-old boy on New Year's Eve, and I have such compassion for him. I have such love for him because I know he's going to make it, and I know that maybe it even needed to be that hard to become the person I am today. But I wish with all my heart, I wish I could have told him that he wasn't alone. Because that's one of the amazing things that books do. They show you that you're not alone. Now, the difference for me then, when I was an 8-year-old, and then especially when I was a teenager then, was that teen books didn't really exist when I was a teenager. There were a few, but most of us went straight on to Stephen King. I still do. Some of you still do, obviously. I did not have books at the time to tell me that I wasn't alone. Now, as a teenager, I was a gay teenager. But I was a gay teenager in 1986, 87, 88, and there were no books by Tim Federle, there were no books by David Levithan, and this was years before the end. I'm really aging myself, aren't I? I'm telling you, I seem like a real old guy. I'm young. I'm still young. This was years before the internet and finding other people on the planet who might know what I was going through. There were no other gay kids at my high school that I knew of, and as far as I know, 25 years later, none of them have come out of the closet either, which seems statistically unlikely. But there you go, bless their closeted little hearts. But here's another true story. This is another true story from my high school years. One of my best friends in high school, we'll call him Craig. It's not his real name, but we'll call him Craig. We'll call him fictional Craig. We were quite different people. He was very sporty. He was quarterback of the high school football team, actually, into school politics, which I wasn't. We were both in all of the honors classes, all of the sort of advanced classes at school. And we were alphabetically close in name, so we sat next to each other for years, and we became really good friends. Same sense of humor, really good guy. Now, when I was 17, a mutual friend told me that fictional Craig had grown uncomfortable going out to the cinema or parties or whatever with me because he was afraid that I was treating the evenings we went out on as dates. Now, two things really quick. This, and I'm serious here, could not be farther from the truth. Fictional Craig, I'm sure, had his admirers, but I was not one of them. Not in that way. My crushes were entirely elsewhere. I just preferred going out one-on-one because it's easier to talk one-on-one. It's not a date. The second thing that I want to say is that fictional Craig was and remains a really good guy. He's a good guy. I don't blame him for this. This was 1988-89. The world was not as it is now. I wasn't out of the closet, obviously, but I'm sure he suspected something, and among what were probably panicky reasons about guilt by association, he was probably just a decent wish not to hurt my feelings. He didn't want to lead me on. But of course, that doesn't matter. The reasons don't matter. It didn't matter at the time. I was unbelievably embarrassed and ashamed and worried about what other people might think, and worried that my whole teenage life, which I already knew was precariously perched, was about to topple over. Anybody had that feeling? Anybody had that feeling? Yeah, a few nods, yes. I'm sorry. And I had, and this is the point, I had absolutely no one to discuss that experience with. No one. I had no idea that anyone anywhere might be going through the same experience. And importantly, neither did my friend. A book, any book, which showed either of us that we weren't alone, could have changed our world. It could have changed the world. What does a book do? It shows you you're not alone. Now, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. I survived anyway. Not everybody does. I didn't kill myself. Many people do. I didn't fight my identity. I didn't fight it very hard, really. It's quite fun. As many also do to their harm. But even luckier, all this time I kept writing. I knew I wanted to write. I kept writing. I had no encouragement at all, and I had no dreams that it would ever work, no thought that I might ever actually publish a book, but I kept on anyway. So why do I write for young people? I wonder sometimes if it's as easy as that I write for the kid who needed to be told that he wasn't alone, because I know he's still out there. He's probably sitting here today. He's probably out there in the audience today. But I don't know that that's quite the right answer, because the right answer, of course, is that I write because I'm a writer. I write for the same reason singers sing and sculptors sculpt. The world isn't asking me to. The world doesn't care if I write or not. The world doesn't need any more writers. So why does a writer write? Why does an artist do anything? I don't know. Why especially write for young people? I don't know, except that those are the stories that I feel drawn to tell. I don't write as a crusader or a teacher or, God help us, a savior. I know writers who do, and I can't really read a word of them. I think they're awful. But some part of me, my soul, my heart, my personality, my flaws, who knows? Some part of me responds to stories, and I think I respond. I think all artists respond to stories that they needed, stories that they need. Again, I believe we carry all of ourselves around at all times. I'm 42 now, but I'm also 26, which, frankly, stinks. My 20s sucked. But I'm also 19 and getting comprehensively laid all the time, which is also nice. Yeah, some of you know. Look up late. It's good English slang. And I'm 14. I'm also 14, which was horrible and physically almost constantly painful. And I am still 8, and it is still New Year's Eve, and I am still going to die before the year is out. But I'm not just that, because that's what growing up is. That's what growing older is. I am all those ages, but I'm also the guy who knows he survived. And so implicit in every story I write for young people is the grown-up person who made it and who knows that you can make it too. Despite embarrassment, despite pain, despite how every day feels like the end of the world. I'm not writing for young people. I'm trying to write for anyone who ever was a young person. So why on earth write for young people, which is the title of the speech? I can hear you whispering. I can hear it. Yeah, you. I can hear it. Everybody look. There she is. I can't answer for you. I don't know why you write. I can only answer for why I write. And I can only ask myself and search and try to guess at an answer that might shift and change and grow while still remaining true. But in the end, maybe my answer to that question, why do I write for young people, is this. A book, any book, is a cry in the wilderness. It's a cry that says, this is the world I recognize. Do you recognize it too? And for books for young people, I'd say that we issue that cry on behalf of the voiceless, on behalf, too, of that voiceless part of ourselves. I don't think it's a wounded cry, but it recognizes wounds. It's not a lonely cry, quite the opposite, but it's a cry that recognizes loneliness. It's not an angry cry, but oh my, is it a cry that knows anger. It's a cry to my ears of compassion, of empathy, of even love, perhaps. Not a comfortable word, but maybe a true one. When I was 8 years old, I had no voice and I needed one. When I was 17 years old, I had no voice and I needed one. I'm older now and I still need a voice, but now I have one. Why do I write for young people? Simple. It's because I once was one. And young people need stories to make sense of the world just as badly as the rest of us. Stories told with truth, stories told with empathy, stories that recognize we're all part of the same human narrative. Thank you. That's my speech. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What do I do now? Thank you very much. Thank you.